What are some of the goals for the Kiona-Benton School District for the 2023 to 2024 school year?
I think one of the biggest goals is trying to refocus around Kaibe as a community and as a school system within the community. We're taking very important steps to recognize that our kids don't necessarily look like other kids, either up or down the valley or in the Tri-Cities, and making sure that we're affording them the best opportunities for our kids. So trying to design some programming and some opportunities that may not exist in other places, but our kids have a need. So we're trying to focus on that a little more this year.
Gotcha. And what are some of the challenges that this school year is bringing?
To be honest, this school year has started off, knock on wood, as well as a school year has started in quite a while. As I talk to other superintendents and other school personnel around the region, around the state, we're getting a lot of the same things. Kids have fallen back into a routine. Last year was really the first kind of go back to real school post-COVID, and it had its own unique set of challenges, as a lot of people will tell you from last year. This year, things were a little more known, and so expectations for kids have been higher, and the kids have jumped up to meet them. It's kind of nice to go into a school year and really have an expectation of, we're doing school again the way that we were trained to do it before COVID.
And how would you say that COVID impacted teachers?
I marvel at the fact that our teaching staff was able to do as well as they could on very short notice. That being said, some of the things that our teachers are utilizing every day, quite frankly, they wouldn't have been there unless COVID had happened. So we have a lot more teachers using interactive software. We have a lot more of, we get used to the Teams and the Zooms for meetings. Well, those have very good ways of being utilized in the classroom. So all of our kids have access to Teams. And quite frankly, we were able to get kids computers and go one-to-one much faster than if we'd been simply asked to implement it over a number of years. The necessity of COVID and the things that it was forced upon us have actually turned out to be, in some cases, a positive, because it really made us come up to speed quicker.
Did COVID kind of make teachers and faculty and staff kind of be able to think quicker on their feet, adapt to changes faster?
I don't think that any teacher would be accused of not having to think on their feet on a daily basis, regardless of the circumstances. I think what it brought up were unique challenges and new challenges that they hadn't had to think about before, make some adaptations, and then realize that they could utilize some of those things that they adapted into regular classrooms as we've come back.
How did COVID affect students in the Kiona-Benton School District?
It had, in my opinion, a higher level of impact here in Kiona-Benton City than in a lot of places. And I think any of the school systems around that are small, rural-based, faced a lot of those same unique challenges. A lot of our kids are on a free and reduced lunch, so we had to work around making sure that our kids were fed during COVID. We ran our food service and our transportation virtually nonstop for the better part of 2 years. No summer break, no spring break, no Christmas break, because we were trying to account for some of those unique needs that we face here. A lot of our kids have the responsibility of taking care of younger siblings, so once their parents went back to work, in many cases that left kids home to take care of younger siblings. So we've had a unique set of challenges, but also I think that our community as a whole, and again, I think this is attributable to the graciousness that most small communities have, is we take care of our own, and community members really stepped up to help out during that time, and quite frankly, they still are.
Did you see in the Kiona-Benton School District a wave of learning loss through the school year? You said that you've kind of caught up a little bit?
Well, we've gotten used to the routines and how we do school. I don't think you're going to find a school district anywhere, not only in the state, but probably the country, that didn't have some sort of an impact from learning loss. And now it's really a matter of just trying to catch up. And I don't think that is anything that's going to happen in this district or any of our neighbors in the next 6 months, next year, or next 2 years. We repeatedly tell our principals these group of kids that missed out on that 2 or 3 years of regular learning are going to be impacted for the rest of their careers. You're going to see those kids moving up into middle school, moving up into high school. And it's not simply a learning loss. In many cases, kids lost social time, they lost social learning, they lost the ability to interact with people. And that's a slow process to get back. So I think we're going to see the impacts of this go on for the next 5 to 10 years, quite frankly, until those kids move through the system. But hopefully, and I know with our teaching staff, we're doing the right things along the way to catch them up academically and hopefully socially as well.
Gotcha. That was one of my questions, was emotionally and socially. Was there also a wave of loss of that?
Yeah, I think there was, and quite frankly, there were for adults too. No one had been through a period of time where for the better part of 6 months people were stuck at home, or the only social interaction were through our computers and through cameras. So those types of things for everyone coming back had to be relearned. And I think that was the biggest challenge for us last year, was getting students, staff, and parents used to those social interactions again. And this year, we're seeing that the hard work, and it was hard work last year, we're seeing that pay dividends because people, kids, parents, teachers are falling back into that rhythm.
So I've seen a push for mental health resources for, I think, everybody, but a lot for teenagers as well. Have you seen this represented through the school district?
Yeah, I believe so. And I think, again, that was a scenario that we were talking about before COVID. COVID simply exacerbated the problem. And so we, as most districts have really tried to focus on social emotional learning and getting kids up to speed and taking care of those needs, because when you're talking about needs of students, if you're not taking care of some of those personal needs, those more foundational needs, it's impossible to then throw academic learning on top of them. That's always been a challenge in education in general. I think that COVID really pushed us, though, to try and meet those needs first. I think a lot of districts and a lot of school systems, ours included, probably tried to do those side by side for a long time. And coming out of COVID, we realized if we don't get the social emotional right, any academic goals or academic desires simply aren't going to take until we meet those more basic needs.
Gotcha. How are those resources being handled through the school district to meet students' needs?
Well, we're pretty fortunate in, again, we have a community that's very outgoing, and a lot of our needs, as well as being social emotional, are simply some of those foundational needs. We have a pantry system where we have kids who come in and they may need to take some extra food home over a weekend. They may need some more school resources, things like that we get donations for. But when you're kind of looking at not simply an academic need or a social emotional need, we just have needy kids in general. And we run the gamut from kids and what those needs are. So I think one of the things that we've been taught is that we have to take a much more personal accountability for each kid and not simply assume that all kids need the same things. Coming out of COVID, we've kind of had to take a very basic look at each kid and say, okay, this student really needs X, Y, or Z, but this student over here doesn't need that, but boy, they could use some help in these other areas. And again, being a part of a small community, we have some resources available here locally, and some people who are really willing to step up and help us provide that. But we're also fortunate because we've got great partners in Columbia Basin College, WSU Tri-Cities, Washington Student Achievement Council. I mean, everybody's kind of coming around to see that there are things that each individual partner, whether it's social or academic, does successfully and does very well. Not everybody has all the answers. So trying to get everybody in a room to discover where are some of our challenges and where are some of our strengths, and then learning from each other, I think those are new conversations that didn't always happen before COVID, that now we realize no one group is going to be able to fix this problem. It's going to take a community effort. whether it's a small community, just Benton City, or part of the larger region. It's something the superintendents talk about regularly at our meetings when we all get together, is what are we doing as individual districts that could help other districts. And so we have a lot of those types of conversations.
We've also seen a lot of violence across schools across the country. Mm-hmm. Have we seen anything like that in the Kiona-Benton School District?
We've been very fortunate. We consider our schools to be safe, but we've had no major violent outbursts, no major acts of violence in the schools. And quite frankly, we didn't before COVID. Our staff is very aware of safety as a primary focus of our school system, and I think again in a smaller district, kids are more comfortable coming forward because they have a much more personal relationship with most of the adults in the school. I know some of our other schools in the region have seen and had issues. Luckily we haven't been there, and we don't treat that as a foregone conclusion. We train our staff and we train our kids on what to do when you have problems or you hear things, say things, speak up and let us know about the problems before they become so big that we have to address them immediately. Let's try and address them as they come up and get them out of the way.
Is there more anxiety in students and staff in this school district because of those national trends?
I think there's anxiety amongst all educators right now. I think it's not a local phenomenon. I think it's a nationwide phenomenon. We tend to, though, focus on the big items that get blown up in news, and we all have rather personal reactions to those. But I think at the end of the day, I think our students and our staff would tell you we're in a better position to be able to deal with that because of our size and the close-knitness, if you will, of the community. Not to say we don't have problems. We simply try to identify them earlier before they become unmanageable.
Conversations regarding artificial intelligence?
I would say no to both. They haven't been topics that have been high up on our list of concerns, either brought to us or concerns by staff. Again, I think that's more of a case of we try not to wait to react to things when they become a big thing. We haven't had a lot of discussion around AI, but I know, we have people going on strike in Hollywood over those types of things. But they haven't been huge, but we don't try and sweep those types of conversations under the rug either. If someone wants to come have the conversation, we're more than willing to have it. But I think we're in a good spot again because I think people feel good about having those types of conversations, knowing that so many of the people, we know each other. The community knows each other well. They know the students well. And it's also terribly hard to keep a secret in a small district. So if something happens, most everybody's going to hear about it.
At the very beginning, we had mentioned new programs.
Mm-hmm.
Is there something that you're specifically excited about?
I think probably one of our things that we're working on very hard these days is, again, it's around the Washington Student Achievement Council, and we received a grant through the STEM Foundation, and so we're working really hard to create new opportunities for our kids here in Benton City. When you have partners like CBC and WSU Tri-Cities that are willing to come here to talk to kids as opposed to us going there, it's a really good dynamic, and it feeds into the idea that as a small district and a small community, we understand there's a challenge of preparing our kids not only for life outside of school, but oftentimes life outside of this community, and we want to really refocus on giving kids opportunities to stay in the community, to hit those lifetime achievements and outcomes that we want to see, with the realization they can do it here locally and not have to travel 100 miles or even to the Tri-Cities to do it. And that's been rather refreshing to be able to see that there are people in the state, in the region, who want to have those types of conversations, because a lot of rural districts will feel like they've been kind of left out of those conversations. So when you have the opportunities, you grab a hold of them. And even though we're still in the talking and discussing phase, I think it holds some promise as to what could be done in small districts when all the resources aren't going to the biggest players in the state.
Yeah, getting into this later in the winter, next school year, if you've got a kid who's about to join the Kiona-Benton school district, what's the top thing a parent needs to know?
I think the main thing that parents need to know as they send their kids to our schools is we've got a very caring staff, and that we're going to do everything we can to meet individual needs of kids. I think in education as a whole, the days of being a number as a student, I think those are gone. Because if you're not meeting the individual needs of kids, you're not setting them up to be able to benefit from your academic teachings that we have to offer. And so regardless of what the problem is for individual kids or families, we have to meet kids' needs where they're at. We can't expect everyone to come here and simply fall into line. Again, I think we're in education, we've been in a position where we kind of advertise ourselves as we take everyone and everybody comes to us for certain reasons. We have to be on our A game because there are so many other educational opportunities out there. It's not just a one-horse town anymore. If we don't recognize that it's not up to students and families to meet our expectations, but sometimes we have to meet theirs and meet them halfway. I think that's going to be the next significant barrier that we have to overcome in education in general, is that as kids get computers and get access and through their phones to a much wider world, we have to be prepared to meet everybody where they're at and not expect everybody just to jump on board with the way we think and we do things.